All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome to the complete set review for Innistrad Midnight Hunt Limited, constructed every single freaking card. You missed white, you missed blue, you missed black. Go watch them on YouTube, please. We're doing red right now, all right? Like, comment, subscribe, hit all the buttons, do all the things. And again, every card limited constructed. Don't forget, my 10 new brews is going to be next Thursday. We got 10 new brews. I'm also doing coverage on that weekend. I'm doing coverage on Saturday for Stream League and Sunday for the Hooglandia Open. Should be a lot of fun. Look for those as well. And let's get started here on red, all right? You're all freaking great. Red, red, red. Starting with Abandon the Post. Flee! Flee for your lives. 2 mana, sorcery. 2 creatures can't block. Flashback for 4. This is a reasonable card for your like aggressive deck that like needs to get through. It's reasonable. It's reasonable. Flavor text: don't gotta outrun the werewolf. Only have to outrun your fellow guard. Ooh. Ooh, rough. So yeah, I mean, reasonable card for sure. Again, kind of like limited fillery. Most decks don't want this card, but if you need a way to push through for your aggressive deck, this can do it for you. This can do it for you for sure. Constructed, obviously not, but fringe limited card. We've seen folders before. Up next is Ardent Elementalist. 4 mana for a 2/1. Comes into play, return instant or sorcery card to your graveyard to your hand. Very good draft card. Very good draft card. This card, it's card advantage. You know, return your shock or whatever. Return whatever your card draw spell, whatever it is. As long as you have enough spells in your deck to reliably get one back all the time, this card's going to be very, very good in your draft decks. Again, you need to have enough cards to get back, but if you do, very, very solid draft card. Good card advantage. These cards are always good and limited. Usually they're blue, but very, very solid draft card. Very solid draft card. Up next is Bloodthirsty Adversary. This is the red adversary, so the red multi-kicker card. 2/2 haste for 2. So the floor is pretty good. You know, 2/2 haste for 2 is like very reasonable. A lot of words. So basically you multi-kicker it for 3. Every multi-kicker will allow you to put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you can cast instant or sorcery cards, mana value 3 or less from your graveyard by copying them. You do that once for each multi-kicker. Alright? Why isn't this card an archer? It's got freaking crossbows everywhere. What the hell? So basically this is a 2/2 haste for 2. Or a 5 mana 3/3 haste Goblin Dark Dweller. Or an 8 mana hasted Goblin Dark Dweller for 2 spells. That's pretty good, but again, like, the problem is that I don't really know what deck sort of wants this card. It's fine. It's reasonable. But like, Goblin Dark Dwellers is fine, but as a 3/3, it's not as good. I don't know. I'm just not really about this card. I think it's fine. It'll probably see play. Just like all the adversary cards, they just seem like they're not really good enough at all the points on the curve. They're just kind of like below the bar a little bit. So, it's fine. You know, I also don't think that Goblin Dark Dwellers decks are going to want a random like 2/2 haster for 2. So, it's fine. It'll see play. I'm not a huge fan. It's probably best in the Goblin Dark Dweller mode. But even then, like, I'm just not super impressed. So, like, you're playing a 5-drop in this format. I think you're playing Goldspan Dragon. So, you know, like, it's got a little competition there, too. So, card's fine. Obviously, a great limited card. Just a 2-drop that scales is really, really good. All the adversaries are very solid limited. But the problem is that the adversaries are just, like, solid at all points. They're never really that good. So, I think it's a very middling constructed card. Not super excited about it. Up next is Brimstone Vandal. 3 mana for a 2/3 menace, which is fine. Comes into play, starts the day-night cycle, and then whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, do a 1 to each opponent. This is like your typical, you know, limited filler card. It's just fine. You know, if you really need a way to turn day and night cycle going, it's okay, but realistically, it's just not very good. Just a limited filler card. Burn down the house. We didn't start the fire. Zev Devils. 5 mana for a 5 damage each creature in Planeswalker, or make 3 red devil tokens. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet, honestly. We've seen this effect once before in Our Devastation. The problem was that in that format, there were a lot of Planeswalkers that were seeing play. I believe Chandra was legal. So you really couldn't afford to play this card in your control deck because you had Planeswalkers in your control deck. There aren't really many good Planeswalkers legal right now in Standard, so most decks don't have many Planeswalkers. Therefore, this card's pretty sweet, honestly. I mean, it's a pretty decent Wrath in red. 5's a lot, kills a lot of stuff. And the good thing is that if your opponent's not playing a control or not playing a creature deck, you can just make 3 Devils. And 3 Devils isn't very good, but having your Wrath be somewhat threatening rather than literally nothing against control decks or mid-range decks is pretty sweet also. So I like this card a lot. It's super sweet. Not going to see a ton of play, I don't think. It's more of a kind of like a fringe card, but it's cool. I like it. It's a cool fringe card. It's a cool card to have around. Definitely see play in Standard as the format goes on. And I like it. I like it a lot. Limited, great card, obviously, also. Either half is phenomenal. So, first pick limited card for sure. But I like it. Sweet card. Sweet card. Burn the Accursed. 5 mana for an instant. 5 to a creature. Exile it. 2 to the creature controller. This is your, like, typical red common removal spell. It's a very good one. 5's a lot. Instant speed is great. 2 damage is great. Exiling is great. Just your solid first pickable removal spell in limited. Nothing too crazy here. Just super solid kill spell. Being an instant is very important. Doing damage to your opponent's very important. Exiling is very important. Kind of checks all the boxes. Pretty easy to cast. Splashable. Solid limited kill spell. Up next is Cathartic Pyre. It's a very interesting card. 2 mana for a 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker card. So very similar to, you know, Scorching Dragonfire, so on and so forth. The card's very playable. However, you can also get this weird Cathartic Reunion effect of discard 2, draw 2. Now, much, much worse than Cathartic Reunion because this is card disadvantage, not card parity. So, discard 2, draw 2. You also lost the Pyre. You're -1 card in this exchange, which is not good. So, the effect of the Pyre is not going to see much use, but, you know, you're playing against a control deck or whatever, and you have extra lands in your hand, sure. You know, sure. So, this card, if you remove the discard text from the card, is still very playable. It's just your Dragonfire effect, very reasonable. But with that there, too, it's kind of a bonus. Probably won't use it very often, but kind of cool. And then, yeah, this card could see play, in theory, in Dredge. You know, it's kind of card that can kill Dothy Voidwalker, and they can also dredge your cards. Discards first is great. I also agree it's a good Madness outlet, because Madness will definitely be a thing in the next set. I promise you Madness will be in the next set, and it's going to be very, very good. So, it's cool. It's a fine card. Kind of a weird role player. Nothing super exciting here, but just like a solid, interesting card that might do some cool stuff. And then, of course, very, very good in limited for sure, just being a removal spell. Again, not a great card like Reanimator and stuff, because like you're losing cards in the exchange, which is bad. But it's okay. It's okay. Curse of Shaken Faith is next. 2 mana for enchantment. Whenever a enchanted player casts a spell other than the first spell they cast each turn, they take 2. Sort of like an Eidolon the Great Rebel. This is more for older formats. Going to be a huge card in like Legacy, Modern, maybe in Vintage, honestly, against combo decks. Much harder to kill Eidolon. Pretty easy to cast. I guess you have Pyrostatic Pillar in like Legacy, but in Modern for sure. Maybe it's combo decks in Historic, whatever it is. This card's pretty cool, and it's one-sided as well. So even against like an Arclight Phoenix deck or a Cantrip heavy deck is kind of cool too. So kind of a cool card. More for older formats for the most part. Unplayable and limited. It's kind of cool. Up next is Electric Revelation. 2 mana for an instant. Discard a card. Draw 2 cards. Flashback 3. So here we have the card parity discard card. Right? So we discard 1, draw 2. We use 2 cards to get 2 cards, but also put a card in the graveyard. So if we want to get cards in the graveyard, this is a reasonable way to do that. It's kind of clunky. Usually we have Thrill Possibility or Tormenting Voice to do it for 2 mana. This is it for 3, but also flashbacks, which is kind of cool. So your mana flooded late in the game, discard another card. Realistically, I wouldn't want this card Instructor probably. It's just not good enough. And then in limited, I guess it is Chemist Insight in the graveyard. That's kind of cool. That's true. That's true. You're right, actually. The flashback is a card up. You're right. You're right. So, that's actually pretty cool, honestly. So, the flashback being a card up is kind of nice. I'm just not sure what deck wants this card. You know, like, I mean, in limited, if you have a card to discard for value, sure. If your deck is really slow and you want to get rid of some lands, sure. But it's just kind of clunky. It's just kind of like a clunky whatever card, honestly. I mean, no constructed. Limited, maybe, but I'm not really happy if this card's in my deck, unless I have a really good reason for it. Up next is Falcon Wrath Perforator. 2 mana for a 2/1. Whenever it attacks, deals damage to a player. Again, the Bloodthirst mechanic in Vampires makes this card pretty cool. So, you know, you attack with this, they block, you still get to trigger your effects, which is kind of cool. Solid aggro 2-drop, just fine. You know, attacks for 3 basically. Just fine 2-drop and limited. Nothing exciting, but if you're aggro, it's fun. Falconry Pitfighter, I actually freaking love this card. I audibly was like, oh wow, that's cool. Whenever I read this card for the first time for my cube. It's a 1 mana 2/1, which is already like a lot of the way there in red. 1 mana 2/1, no drawback, it's a vampire. You can pay 2, discard a card, and sacrifice a vampire, including this, to draw 2 cards, and you can activate this only if an opponent lost life this turn. So, this card's freaking cool. Turn 1, play this card. Turn 2, attack, deal 2, sacrifice it, discard a card you want in the graveyard, and draw 2 cards. That's awesome. That's like a really, really cool card. Savannah Lion is sad. I know, I agree. But because you're already most of the way there with a 2/1 for 1 vampire anyway, this ability is kind of gravy. But it's a really good ability. It's cool. It's honestly a very nice ability. So, in any other year in Magic history, this would have been the best 1 mana red creature ever. Yep. Close. You know, not like the best one, but like Avalaki and stuff. But yeah, I mean, just a really cool card. It does work very well with the old Vampire from Innistrad with the Madness and stuff like that. Again, I'm sure Madness will be in the next set. So, it's cool. And it's sweet. It's just a really cool card. And the thing is, you don't have to sacrifice it. You know, like what I'm saying about popping it on turn 2, if you're like a Reanimator deck in Cube, you can do that. But if you're not, just don't sacrifice it, you know? So, card's super sweet. I like it a lot. Super flexible. Super fun card. Slam dunk for Cube. Constructed playable for sure if you need a card like this. In Limited, very good card. Savannah Lions is super, super solid. So, yeah. Card's great. Card's great. Up next is Famished Foragers. 4 mana for a 4/3, which is fine. Comes into play if your opponent lost life this turn, you can add 3 mana. You can also pay 3 to discard a card and then draw a card. Again, kind of like your placement level 4-drop. Very reasonable. Obviously no madness in this set, but if your opponent took damage, you can play it and activate it immediately, which is kind of cool. It's a cool card. It's a cool, solid card. It's good flood insurance, good size body. Just solid card. Just solid card in Limited. Not a card you'll always play, but very reasonable. This isn't a Chain Whirler. Ship it. Let's go. Fangblade Brigand. 4 mana for a 3/4. You pay 2. It gets +1/+0 and first strike. So great body. Great body. Good blocker when you cast it. Great attacker. Great attacker. And it's a werewolf. Flip that thing over, and what do you get? You get the same card, but it's a 4/5. And you also get the ability to give all your creatures +2/+0. This card's solid. It's another just solid 4-drop. Very similar to the black werewolf uncommon. Just like super solid 4-drop. Great stats. Great limited card. It's a stall breaker. It's got good stats. Just a very high quality limited card. Up next is Flame Channeler. I actually love this card. This card was close to best in show for me. 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever a spell you control deals damage, transform it. Okay, easy enough, right? And it's that damage to anything. So damage to a creature, a player, whatever. The backside is Embodiment of Flame, which is a 3/3 elemental wizard. Whenever a spell you control deals damage, once again to anything, put a flame counter on it. Pay 1, remove a flame counter, exile your top card, you can play it this turn. That's freaking awesome. So it's super easy to flip. It flips into a good sized body. And then it can just draw cards as time goes on. This card's awesome. I like this card a lot. I'm a huge fan. Just a really, really powerful card. It won't flip back. It just stays on this side. So you have a 3/3 forever, and it can draw cards. It's just great. Just a really good card. I love this card a lot. I actually forgot what best in show is. Oh, I know. Yeah, very close to best in show. Yeah, it's an uncommon. Like I feel like this card could be like a mythic legendary creature. That'd be really, really cool. But yeah, like we have Shock in the set. You know, in older sets, same thing. You can play lands. This card's just great. This card's just great, honestly. Love it. Great card. Limited card, great card. Constructed card, great card. Love it. Older formats, you name it. I'm all about this card. I'm all about it. Up next is Geist Flame Reservoir. Get the zappies here. 2 mana for an artifact. If you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on this. Pay 2. Remove any number of counters on it. Deal damage to any target for that many counters. Okay. And then we have 2 mana to exile top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. Very, very slow card. Very, very slow card. It's a cool card. Definitely great in sealed. It's kind of slow. In drafts, I mean, if you're playing like a lot of instant sorceries, it's obviously pretty reasonable. But it's sort of like a weird, slow Dynavolt tower that can draw you cards. You know, the ability to just like play this and then like on turn 5, just activate it and draw a card. Turn 6, activate it and draw a card is reasonable if things are really slow. But this is a very, very slow card. I doubt this card makes it back in standard. And then in limited, if your deck is slow, you got spells in it, you need things to do, it's fine. But very, very slow card. Again, probably a really good sealed card where you have time to activate it a million times, but otherwise not very exciting. Not very exciting. Up next is Harvesttide and Infiltrator, which is a 3 mana 3/2 with trample, and then it flips over into a 4/4 trample. Again, replacement level 3 drop. Nothing crazy. Gets you to going on your day-night cycle. It's just a, you know, an okay card. Nothing really super exciting here. Just your common werewolf. Up next is Immolation. Not quite deadweight. And this is very similar to deadweight, honestly. This is just kind of card. It's fine. It's reasonable. It's cheap. Cheap removal spell. Occasionally, you'll pump your creature and kill them and be really happy about it. But for the most part, it's just a deadweight. Yeah, just good common removal spell in limited. It is an old score reprint. That is true. Go find your old copies from like the Dark or whatever it was. And then in Constructed, if there's some reason to play this card, for example, like a Danto Vanguard, some indestructible creature, whatever, it could see play Constructed for sure. But otherwise, Shock's better. So, kind of a cool card. Lambbolt Harrier. 2 mana for a 2/2. 4 mana, creature can't block this turn. Very solid 2-drop. Very solid 2-drop. Good mana sink, reasonable body. Very, very solid 2-drop unlimited. Up next is Light Up the Night. Red and X. Deals X damage to any target. It deals X plus 1 damage to a creature or planeswalker. So basically, it deals X plus 1 damage to a creature or planeswalker. If you target a player, it deals 1 less damage. So, sure. So it's, you know, 1 mana to deal 1, 2 mana to deal 2, and so on and so forth if it's not targeting a player. But it can target players also. So, great limited card, obviously. So it's a fireball. Phenomenal limited card. Constructed, not as good. Flashback is 4 mana. Remove X loyalty counters from among planeswalkers you control. If you cast a spell this way, X can't be 0. So, planeswalkers aren't very good right now. So, if it was like during War of Spark, and you could like pop off like 9 counters from your planeswalkers and just fireball your opponent and kill them, that'd be kind of cool. Most walkers are pretty bad right now. So, you're most looking at the front side here. And the front side's fine. You know, 1 mana, kill a 1/1, 2 mana, kill a 2/2, whatever. Scale's okay, but probably not a very good card. Unless the flashback's gonna be really, really good. Not a particularly great card, but great limited card, obviously very splashable. It's a fireball. What are you gonna do, you know? Bleep bloop, thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. Lunar Frenzy is next. Red and X. Creature you control gains plus X, first strike, and trampled in a turn. Usually these cards are really bad. These are like the Enrage, like Howl to Beyond, whatever cards. But giving it first strike and trample is actually kind of huge. This card's pretty sweet. This card is pretty sweet. It's expensive, but even if you just give it like, you know, 2 mana, so you say X is 2, +2/+0, first strike, and trample, that's pretty good. And then later in the game, you just like pump 8 mana into it or whatever, and like just kill your opponent, kill all their stuff. I wouldn't want a lot of these, but the first one's going to be real good. The more aggressive you are, the better, obviously. You don't want to use this card on defense, that's for sure, because you will get blown out far too often. But on offense, great. It is very good on Death Touchers, that's very true as well. This card's probably pretty good. I know these cards usually are bad historically, but I think this one's pretty good. I like this one a lot. Also good on a zombie. That's great also. So I like it. Constructed, obviously not, but in limited for sure. Moonrager Slash. 3 mana for an instant. Deals 2 extra, costs 2 us to cast if it's night. This is the Lightning Bolt. Get it? Lightning Bolt. So if it's nighttime, this is Lightning Bolt. If it's daytime, this is Carbonize. Obviously, super high quality limited card. Just premium removal spell. Probably best red common. I need to look at it. But constructed, we're going to need to see how prevalent nighttime stuff is in standard. You know, are werewolves playable? How often is it nighttime in standard? And that will obviously answer the question of if this is going to be playable in standard or not. It's obviously fine in standard because, like, if you have to cast it for 3, it's not the end of the world. It's not good, but it's not the end of the world. But playability in standard will depend, obviously, solely on how playable the day-night cards are. But phenomenal limited card, pretty cool card. It's cool. It's cool. Up next is Moonveil Regent. Chat's calling it. Chat says best in show will probably be Moonveil Regent. Well, guess what?
It's a trap.
This card's not good. This card's not good at all. This is a 4/4 flyer for 4. Whenever you cast a spell, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each spell, for each of that spell's colors. Okay? When it dies, deals X damage to any target where X is the number of colors on permanents you control. So, what we have here is a 4/4 flyer for 4. That's basically it. All the words on this card don't really mean or do anything. How many colors of permanents are you actually going to have in play? Right? So when it dies, it deals 1. Maybe it deals 2. You know? And then how many multicolored cards are you casting? And you also have to discard your entire hand anyway. So, yeah, if you're empty-handed, you cast a spell and draw a card. Cool. That's fine. But we're now empty-handed in a stable game state and our 4/4 flyer is still alive. You know? So, the reality is that Magic has moved past the point where a 4/4 flyer for 4 is good. And it's not good. It's not. You need a lot more than that to be good in standard. It's just not super exciting. So, it's fine. It's not amazing. You know, it's not. I'm sorry. It's not like completely unplayable. But it's also just not very exciting at all. You know, again, you don't really want to be hellbent ever. And if you are hellbent, you can draw cards. But you don't want to be hellbent. And if you end up hellbent and they kill this, now you're just hellbent with nothing. So I think this card's pretty exciting. I think this card will see very little play in standard. Dies to a lot of stuff. Doesn't affect the board. The thing that makes Frenzy and the cards at top end mono red decks good, that they're hard to interact with. This dies to all the same stuff that's already good against mono red. You know, where you play a Frenzy and they're like, oh crap, all I have is Doomblades in my hand. So, that's the call. We'll see. You know, give it 2 weeks. We'll see what happens, I guess. But it's Trap. This is the kind of card. It's funny because, like, these set reviews are almost boring for me because it's the same thing literally every time. Like, it's a some format of Mythic. It's a 4/4 with a lot of words on it. Doesn't affect the board at all. Everyone loves it because it's like they think about the cool abilities that it has. I say it's bad. It's not actually good. And then we do it. And then I'll see you next set review. We'll just do it again. Like, it's like almost like scripted at this point, you know? So, just don't think it's great. Again, is it playable? Yeah, it's okay. Could it see play? Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like unplayable, you know, but it's just not a particularly exciting card. It's not a card you put in your deck and you're like, oh, I got my Moonveil Regent. Let's freaking go. Let's freaking go. You know, so yeah, so definitely super overrated. Obviously, nuts and limited. You're going to kill your opponent with this card every time. It's an absolute total bomb. But yeah, overall, not a very exciting card. You're all being tricked. It's Trap. Listen to Akbar. Akbar knows what's up. All right? Akbar knows what's up. Yeah, it was like the one in Zendikar Rising. It was like when it dies, you make mana or whatever. It wasn't good either, obviously. So, moving on. Mounted Dreadnight. 5 mana for a 5/4 trample. Comes into play with a counter on it. Opponent lost life this turn. This card's pretty solid. A 6/5 trample for 5 is very, very good. And a fail state of being a 5/4 trample for 5 is also fine. If you're an aggro deck and you're kind of like fulfilling this, dealing damage to your opponent kind of thing, this card's a nice curve topper. Not a card you'll always play, if you have better 5-drops or whatever, but very solid curve topper. I like it in your aggro decks. Neonate's Rush. The mana for an instant, costs 1 less if you have a vampire, and then does 1 damage to a creature and 1 damage to your controller. Draw a card. Again, kind of a cool way to trigger your stuff. If you've dealt 1 damage to your opponent, you can kill a creature maybe. Drawing cards great too. So if you play all vampires, this card's pretty good. 2 mana to deal 1 and draw a card is pretty nice. So Wouldn't want this card, but have a lot of vampires, but solid card. Solid card. I like it. I like it. Obsessive Astronomer. 2 mana for a 2/2. Makes the day-night cycle start. And whenever day becomes night, you may discard 2 and then draw that many cards. I mean, as a bear, this card is totally reasonable. You know, it's a bear with upside. Again, if it's just a bear, you're happy. And this also starts the day-night cycle. So if you have other werewolves in your deck, it can help that too. Again, you're rummaging. It's not card advantage. But you're also not losing cards. You already have a bear in play. So you can loot away like lands and stuff. Pretty solid card. You know, kind of card that can just like filter away your lands in the mid-game and the late game, help you not flood. And again, the floor here is a bear. So very solid draft card. Kind of like this card a lot. And it's cool. Sleep. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Pax Betrayal. 3 mana for a sorcery. Gain control of a creature at the end of turn. Untap that creature, gains haste. If you control a wolf or werewolf, scry 2. So just your average threaten. It's just like the same old story once again. Do you have sack outlets in your draft deck? If you do, this card's great. If you don't, this card's terrible. Simple as that. Play with Fire. This card's awesome. I know this card looks so silly. It's just like shock plus a little bit extra. But 2 important things about this card. 1, Stomp is rotating.
Get off my plane.
Bogrush Giant, see you later. All right. Shock is a good standard card. It hasn't looked good for 2 years because Stomp's been around. But Shock is totally fine in standard. The problem with Shock is that when you play against a deck that's not playing small creatures, it kind of sucks. So we get a little extra upgrade. Now you can go upstairs. You don't feel as bad by going upstairs. You scry 1. And this card is great. You're going to see a lot of play. Just a very, very solid card. It's rock solid. We see a lot of play in standard. And it's cool. It's cool. Great limited card, obviously. Not much to say here. Nothing fancy. Purifying Dragon. 5 mana for a 4/3 flyer. Great limited. Whenever it attacks, does 1 damage to creature player controls. Creature's zombie, it deals 2 damage. So realistically, it was just a good limited card. Good size body. Would love it if it had 4 toughness, make it a lot better. But just a solid curve topper. You know, you'd rather have this card than the common 5-drop. You know, but like it's fine. Just a good solid card. Good solid draft card. Moving on. Raise the Effigy. 1 red instant shatter or attacking creature gets +2/+2. There are very few artifacts in the set for limited. There's very few. There's like 5 or 6. So the shatter will almost never matter. And this is a pretty mopey trick. I wouldn't want this unless I was super aggressive. I do love 1 mana tricks, but very, very narrow card. Probably better in older formats where you want the 1 mana shatter, but it's cool. It's cool. Reckless Storm Seeker. No? Nope. Very, very good card. Very, very good card. 2 mana for a 2/3. Beat him combat your turn. Or creature you control gets +1/+0 and haste. So basically a 3/3 haste for 3 with upside, which is very, very good, obviously. It's insane with Seeker's Chariot. It's insane with the 2-drop green wolf that draws cards. Very, very good with that one also. This card is very, very good. No question. This card might end up seeing more play than my best in show card. But I think it's less impactful than my best in show card is. So, it's still very, don't take this not being best in show as not this card not being very good. This card is very, very good. Backside is just bigger. 3/4 gives +2/+0 and trample, and also gives trample too. So card's still very, very good. Again, it is a 2/3 on defense. You know, it is a kind of card like where it needs other cards to be good. But this card is very good. Very solid card. Again, busted with the Seeker's Chariot, which is definitely a really important interaction. But yeah. And then limited, this card is just unreal. Like unreal and limited. The common that did this without haste was already good and limited. And this card's ridiculous. So, and also sick jetpack. Sick jetpack. Look at that freaking thing. Right? So yeah, super good card. Again, probably gonna be the most played card in red from the set. But I think that the card that's best in show is gonna be more impactful overall. That's why it's best in show. So sick jetpack can't fly. So it's busted with Chariot because yes, it curves into it and gives it haste. So Chariot attacking immediately and making a token's awesome. So that's more Chariot being good than this card being good though. So moving on to Seize the Storm. 5 mana for a sorcery. Make an elemental token with trample. And this creature's power and toughness equal to the number of instant sorcery cards in your graveyard, plus the number of cards you own, flashback and exile, flashback for 6. This is a great archetype card for your draft deck. If you're like the spells matter deck in limited, this is like your big payoff card. Self mill is great. That's awesome. That art is really awesome. I couldn't really like see what it was, but I actually like really looked at it. That art is really, really cool. And yeah, very Prismari-esque for sure. Yeah, just very, very solid limited card if you're that exact archetype. Not great otherwise, but if you just get like a 3/3 and a 4/4 of this, though, it's still pretty good. Because the flashback's good too. So solid draft card for certain archetypes. Really, really cool art. Really cool art. There it is. This card is ridiculous. Smoldering Egg. 2 mana for an 0/4. It has Defender. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a number of counters on it equal to the mana spent to cast this spell. Okay? Then if Smoldering Egg has 7 or more counters on it, you flip it. Alright, now it's important to note, this card tracks the mana cast for a spell. So, all you have to do, literally all you have to do, is play this card on turn 3, Prismari Command, whatever, any 3 mana spell on turn 3, then any 4 mana spell on turn 4, and this flips. Boom. On curve, that easy, on turn 4. What do you get when it flips? You get Ashmouth Dragon, a 4/4 flying dragon. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to any target. Any target, no restrictions, no cast restrictions. Just keep casting your ops and bolting things forever. Kills creatures, board control, kills your opponent. Card is awesome. Like, if you flip this thing on top of it, the game is over. And you can flip it on your opponent's end step. You can have it in play, it's an 0/4, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, bam, cast spell, flip it, untap, and the game is over. The game is over. Card is absolutely phenomenal. Just really, really, really good. Again, you can flip it on turn 4. You can also just like not do that if you have other spells. You just play this card, say go, play counter spell, counter it, play cancel, whatever. It's important to note that it counts the amount of mana to play the spell, not the mana cost. So for example, you couldn't delve a treasure cruise and flip this. If you play Behold the Multiverse for 2, it's only 2 cards. So that's important to note. That is definitely a factor for sure with this card. But on the flip side, if you were to Madness a Fiery Temper, that would count as 3. Wait, I'm sorry, no, it wouldn't. I'm lying. I just said that. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to the set review. Disregard that. But regardless, more of a standard card. So this card is better in standard than Thing in the Ice is because, or it's more suited for standard than Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice wants you to play a lot of cheap cards. This wants you to play more expensive cards, which standard is more apt to have. So if you're playing modern and your deck's all bolts and serum visions, this card's not going to be that great. But in standard, where you're playing more expensive cards anyway, this card is just unreal. It's also just like a reasonable blocker. It's cheap. You can play it on turn 5 with the counter spell up. This card's phenomenal. This card's absolutely phenomenal. It's the kind of card that spawns on archetype. Even though, again, I think that the werewolf will see more play on average, being Stormseeker. This card will see more play on average. I think the egg will have a much more dominant effect on the format and be more of a card that spawns its own archetypes. Like, egg control will be a thing, So, really good card. Very, very impressive this card. I think it's freaking awesome. Again, if you flip it, I don't see how you can have this card in play for like a turn or 2 and not win the game on the spot. Their board is dead, and it just kills them really fast too. So, love this card. It's super awesome. Just a huge fan. Best in show, not close. This card's so freaking good. I cannot wait to play with this card. Cannot wait to play with this card. In limited, you gotta have spells in limited, but the floor is really high, so you just let it go. Let it go. The Day-Night Red Bear counters it? What do you mean? I don't understand. Moving on to Spell Rune Painter. The mana for a 2/3 Wolf. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it gets possible. It says pseudo prowess and then pseudo double prowess. So there clearly seems to be like a blue-red spell matter deck. That seems to be the blue-red archetype. This card fits right into that, obviously. If you're not that, this card sucks. If you are that, this card's pretty good. You get the idea. limited card. Stolen Vitality, 2 mana for an instant. Creature gets +2/+0 on a turn. If it's your turn, it gets trample. If it's your opponent's turn, it gets first strike. This card's pretty tight. It's not, excuse me, it's not quite run amok because +1 to toughness might not be enough to win the combat, which is pretty scary. And then you don't want to use pump spells defensively because you often get blown out because your opponent's totally untapped, making their attack into your open mana, and you go to play it defensively, they kill your creature, and like it's pretty bad. So, yeah, I'm actually not super big on this card, honestly. If it was like +3/+2, sign me up. But I'm concerned that the 1 toughness won't be enough to win fights. So, all in all, kind of a mediocre trick on both sides. Not really a big fan. Not really a big fan. Up next is Sunstreak Phoenix. Your Phoenix with set mechanic card. Red 2 for a 4/2 flyer, which is obviously fine. It starts the day-night cycle. And then whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you can pay 2 and recur the Phoenix. Now, obviously an absolutely bonkers limited card. You play it, it trades. It's going to come night and day for sure, so you keep getting it back. Limited card, off the charts good. Very, very good. Constructed card, I mean, maybe. You know, you definitely can just like discard this card somehow. And then, I don't know how you're starting the day-night cycle, but if you get it back, it's really cool. So, like usual, it's a Phoenix that requires deck building. It's plenty easy to get cards in graveyards. There are plenty of graveyard cards in this set, and plenty of ways to get cards in graveyards. So, getting it there isn't really the problem. The problem is, what's your plan for starting a day-night cycle, and what's your plan for, like, getting it going as well? So, cool card. Definitely has potential for sure, but those questions need answering for constructed. For limited, obviously, just crazy. Tavern Ruffian. Again, just sort of your common werewolf. A 2/5 for 4 is certainly passable. Flips over, comes to 6/5. Honestly, just a solid limited card. You know, like, it buys time, then it flips. It's very big. Just a reasonable card. Not a card you play all the time. It's just fine. More for, like, the big, like, kind of like rampier decks and aggressive decks, but solid card. Solid card. Alchemist is back. Welcome back to the format. Obviously, again, instant sorcery kind of theme. This card saw a lot of play in Standard last time, so solid card. Definitely gets to play constructed. Obviously, kind of like a blue-red deck in Standard. You play your ops and your shocks and burn your opponent out. It's kind of cool. Yeah. Also very good in the vampire deck. Very, very true. This turns on all the vampire cards by itself. So it's not only a blue-red spells kind of card, it's also a card for the vampire deck. It just turns on the vampires every turn, does 1 every turn, which is pretty cool too. So it is not uncommon. Not going to see it as much, but cool card to have back. It's a fun card. It's a fun card. Village Watch. We get a 5 mana 4/3 haste, which is passable. It's certainly passable in limited. Flips over to a 5/4 haste and gives all your other wolves and werewolves haste. The kind of card that's really good to play once you're already in the night, which should be reasonably easy, which is kind of cool. Again, the new werewolf mechanic is definitely different because now you can play the backside more easily, which is kind of cool. So that's pretty sweet. Very reasonable card. Again, probably want to play it on the backside if possible, but very reasonable. Balderan Ambusher, 3 mana for a 2/2. Comes into play if an opponent lost life this turn, deals X damage to 1 target creature or planeswalker, X number of vampires you control. A total, you just catch them all kind of card. You know, if you're playing limited, you have a lot of vampires, boom, there you go. Seems like a great archetype card for the vampire deck. Obviously, it has the Bloodthirst effect, and then if you ever kill them with this, super awesome. So, very solid draft card. Very solid draft card. Balderan Stinger. She looks mad. 1 red for a 1/1. First strike when attacking. And you can also get +2/+0. I mean, if you need to push damage through, this is a pretty good one to do that because your opponent will never block this, but you also never want to pump it. So this card does a good job like getting that point damage and trigger other cards. Definitely a good one drop for that sort of vampire aggro bloodthirst deck for sure. Cool card. That's it. That's red. So it's pretty crazy art. YouTube folks, love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your best in show. You can leave your comments about the Regent card being good, and we'll go back and look at them in about a month, and we'll see who's right. Okay. YouTube folks, love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Green's coming up next.